expenses. Okay. Roll call, please.
Decent.
Nancy.
Absent. Ermeline.
Here.
Chamberlain.
Here.
Maloney.
Yes.
John.
Here.
And for the board?
Conan.
Here.
Ermeline. Hardinger. Absent. Pincinel.
Present.
Maloney.
Here.
Wyland. On Zoom.
She said she was coming in, but she might be 5 minutes late.
Okay.
I talked to Jasper earlier and he said he wasn't gonna make 4:30, but he'd be here for board.
And Zagami.
Here.
Okay, item 5, approval of the minutes of the previous finance committee meeting of October 11th. What's your pleasure?
I'll make it.
Move to approve by Dave,
I'll second.
second. by Cindy. Any question? All in favor by saying
Aye.
opposed, so carried. Any public comments?
I don't have.
Well, this is for the finance committee
Finance.
meeting. Anybody on Zoom? Or phone? Hearing nothing, acknowledge of work product transmittal, the 7th September budget status report.
Summary in the packet so far, things are looking very positive for us this year. One of the biggest positives are the interest rates. We have a lot of extra interest income that was not budgeted for. One of the things we also have to remember though, it's saying, why didn't you budget more? Let's adjust more. We have to be really careful with our expenditures. We can amend the budget, but what I want to do is go back and see how much we're allowed to amend. Remember with our expenditure restraint program, we're only allowed to go up so much. And this includes even revenues, which is why this program really needs to be revised, but it has not yet. So say if you have an additional $200,000 or close to it, which is where the village is actually getting close to, we can't spend the extra 200. And even if we would have budgeted it, we would have reduced our total revenues by $100,000, which is our expenditure restraint program. So that's always a thing. We can spend money, but the year that we spend and we don't comply with the expenditure restraint, we may get $200,000 positive, but it's going to be a net of 100. Something we gotta look at and really be aware of the year that we're going to be going over, try to get everything done in 1 year, whether it's going to be a referendum or just a fee increase, where you're gonna spend the money, try to get it done in 1 year, because each year that you do it, it's a negative $100,000 plus, because I think we're doing, I don't know, it was over 100,000 for our expenditure restraint program next year. So. Any questions after you reviewed that work paper?
Well, it's pretty hard to judge how much interest you're gonna get. I mean.
Usually,
Once it's down in the bottom floor and the next time it's up, but it's kind of.
and we couldn't have, like I said before, even if we would have predicted the excess interest income, we could not have increased our budget that much. I mean, even
It just goes into unbalanced.
it does, but we don't
I
know.
don't know what that is now.
Is there anybody on Zoom?
Yes,
Yeah.
but everyone
Everyone's
is
muted.
muted, so.
Is Nate here? No, he's
He's
sick.
out sick today.
Any other questions on the budget status report? Okay,
Questions or concerns?
Oh,
Okay, the TIF.
Set up in one of these
1 and 2 Detail report for
Quite,
September.
I mean, I might be comfortable if these are more comfortable.
big numbers again, when we talk about interest, the other, $31,000 of interest income for the TIF for 1 month. That's pretty impressive. When we talk about TIF and giving out grants, I think one thing that we could do is really look at the amount of interest accumulated this year and maybe set up a special grant that really promote people and give a little bit more leniency on this. I mean, there's no good, I mean, we have projects for this TIF, but I mean, it's really special that we have this additional funds that we could really help people that really need it. It's just an opportunity the board has that we could definitely look into taking advantage of it.
Which tip is that? 1 or 2?
TIF 1. We accumulate the money for Weston Avenue and we're spending it, but in the meantime, we have pretty good interest rates. We're collecting monies.
It's a nice problem.
It's a very nice problem.
I remember hearing the opposite of that. Okay, any questions, anybody? Anything additional, Jess?
Nothing additional.
Okay, legal detail.
Presented a summary again. Is there any questions on what is in the packet?
Any questions, comments?
Not for me.
Okay, then moving on, approve vouchers numbers 60,370 to 60,571, 90,125 to 90,128. What's your
Move to approve.
pleasure? Councilman Maloney?
We're in, are we still in finance or? are
Yeah,
we-
we're in finance.
When are we in?
Yeah, when
Yeah,
did
wait,
we?
when are we joined? The whole thing is a joint.
The whole thing is joint.
We're all joint? Okay, never mind. Second by Wyland. Let the record show Wyland's here. With vote in here.
I was muted somehow on
We
Zoom.
did that on purpose. We're
Educate-
getting some.
Feedback. We're getting feedback, so I did mute.
It's weird.
It's on Bluetooth.
Could have been somebody else.
Russian interference.
Could have been
Or
somebody
not,
else.
I wonder if it was her.
Okay, education presentation.
Did we get through?
Report.
Did you guys vote on that?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay, we had a motion second, yeah. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Don't look at me. Here, use it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sure, when we were back and forth doing,
So
whose meeting
just
it was, I forgot where we were at.
So I think Mark, you first and Jamie seconded, so
Yep.
that would be a board vote. I don't think finance.
All right, I'll motion and second by Dave.
Okay.
You need to vote on that.
Yes, now, on the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried, okay,
I have a question.
okay,
Just going back to the attorney's fees, I see in 2022, we spent 47,000. 2023, we spent 30. Are we projected to be, where are we projected to be by the end of the year for that?
I think we're gonna be right about budget. We're running less than last year, so that's a good thing.
How far are we behind? So we're at 30 right now, but are we year to date or are we a couple months behind?
So when you look at this, it does not go by fund. So these are all funds, so TIFs and utilities. So that includes all funds, but when you look at the village general fund, we are not, we're projected to be under budget.
Okay,
I'm trying to see if it's on here.
I just know we have something coming up later. That's why I was asking.
Village attorney. So as of the end of September, we're at 22,989.
For 23?
Yeah, for September. I know we have paid a bill since, so when I looked at the GL,
Okay.
it's higher, but as of the end of September, it's 22,000. A lot of that, we still have SBC, the cell phone towers, that's all in there. And we had,
22.9 number you reference is in the general fund, and the number you're looking at, Steve, is total.
Yeah.
That includes the TIFs.
Yeah.
Yes, and the utilities.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, educational presentations and reports, overview of the 2022 audit.
So our audit was actually done a couple months ago. I was waiting for the hard copies and we never got them. If you want a hard copy, we made a couple. Usually they're not that popular because it's not an exciting read. But we do have some highlights on here. For the utilities, we did increase our net position for all three utilities. But the main thing, like when you look at the funds, it was due to the capital contributions. There was we'll say a net loss for a couple of them if we weren't to have the capital contributions. Capital contributions are the assets that are given to the utilities by a developer. So Hinter Springs we got like $500,000 worth of assets for free. So we booked those as quote unquote revenue for the utilities. So when you look at the revenue and expenditures for the utilities, it shows up as income. It's the way that we're required to report that. Revenues were $256,000 more than budgeted. We received more payment in lieu from Rothschild. Intergovernmental charges were over budget. And miscellaneous contributions and revenues. Expenditures were $166,000 under budget. General government ended up $88,515 under budget.
I didn't see anything on their letter that jumped out at me, so.
No, we didn't have anything for the management comments much. I can hand out, we did get a separate letter that I will get handed out. It was, the letter that they have is not for public distribution, so I can get that handed out next time. It did not get included in the packet.
That the letter where sometimes they'll say you didn't have enough, you know.
Yep.
Separation of duties or,
Mhm.
okay. yeah,
Yep.
I kinda like want- Reading those, just, the audit is kind of just the audit. It's like, but you kind of like to know what.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering what was the fee for auditing?
I think our contract, let me look quick. I think it's 35,
You have 100,000?
35,000.
Yeah, I was hoping. Who did the audit again? Still Kerber? Okay.
Yeah, Kerberos does the audit. Audit billings.
Okay, anything else? Any comments or concerns? Okay. I guess, need a motion to, accept 2022 audit report.
The 22 audit cost $23,100.
Okay. So for finance, I'll motion.
Maloney. Second, Gemma. Okay. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
And the same for the board.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Cronin,
Second.
second by Wyland.
I have a question.
On the discussion, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, is this something we're required to do annually?
Yes,
Who required us to do that, state or?
Jessica does.
That's good.
no. So because we issue public debt, we're required to get an audit that way. The audit, for those who are not familiar with audits, the audit basically says that the financial statements are presented materially correct. What does that mean? What that means is when they come in every year, they're not specifically looking for fraud. They're not looking for, they give you advice on your internal controls, but you don't get marked down. They'll give you a little, in your letter, they'll tell you that you're failing there, but there's not a significant consequence. Say, for example, we had a single audit and then they said your internal controls are terrible. That could have repercussions on any
financial aid that you get from federal grants or anything, but we're not in that situation. Excuse me. But yeah, when we talk about audits, a lot of people think they look for fraud. They actually don't. That's not their main job. Their main job is to make sure that the numbers that I'm showing you on screen are materially correct and there's no large errors.
Okay.
So as a third party audit, do they stand behind what they have, what like a tax preparer would sign and defend or not? You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're
So the red
saying,
flags,
but I don't know
obviously-
who they would be defending it against.
Yeah, I guess I know, but I'm just thinking of something, just a horrible, practices that we do, and then, at a certain point, you're right, we would pay consequences on other stuff.
The firms have gotten sued before.
I'm sorry?
Firms have gotten sued before, but I don't know the background on all that.
By the actual municipality that got audited by them?
No, not,
Who would sue them?
somebody relying on their financial statements.
Oh, I see, okay. Oh, yeah, I would believe that. Okay,
I would say if they see a red flag, they will bring it up.
well, sure.
At the same time, if they telling her, yes, you're doing correct, no, you're not doing correct. That's a red flag right there. Say you're not doing it correct. Let's go back and see why it's not correct.
I think
Yeah.
over the years we've had where little statements where they felt something could have been handled different or whatever. And I think in the past, we've had quite often where the separation of duties, just because we were such a small office that it was impossible to, have everything completely separate. We're better now.
I've always thought that the person giving the presentation usually is quite glowing on what we've done, especially the last 10 years.
Christina's no longer with them. I don't know if you knew that.
Who?
Christina, the person that usually presented.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
We always heard good comments, so,
yes.
that's good. All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried.
Okay, review and discussion of the 2024 budget.
So in your packet, we just have select spreadsheets that I've chosen to talk about. There were links to all the information. If you're curious, you could click on any of those links and it would have taken you to the full budget for both all the funds listed. So last time we talked about the health insurance. The discussion was to keep in a 10.2% increase in health insurance and also keep the 4% market adjustment for wages. We balanced the budget from last meeting by increasing the applied budget surplus when we talked about the elections. So we put that in there. We also added a line for equipment rental from the utilities and a few other miscellaneous increases. So to expand on the equipment rental from the utilities, currently when we go and fix inlets or if we go to a water main break, we take village owned equipment. That equipment's filled up with village general fund monies for the fuel. And also when that equipment is worn down and needs some work, it is repaired by our village general fund employee. So with this charge of charging the utilities a rental fee for this equipment, that will kind of like even out and pay back the village for the wear and tear, fuel and maintenance of this equipment. We've never done it before. It's going to be a little bit more labor intensive clerical work to account for the hours that this equipment is being used.
I thought we did do that.
We do it for the recycling grant, but we've never done it for utilities.
Because I mean, the whole village is not the utilities, so that ain't right.
Do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, historically, like a few excavators ago, I think half of the excavator was bought by the water utility and half bought by the village general fund. So at that time, I know the direction was, well, the water utility owns part of it, so we don't really want to charge ourselves for it. But this was something I brought up like after the last meeting, because we, You know, we go fix inlets, manholes, water valves, you know, before our asphalt overlays, we're out there doing that work. Our crew charges their time to the appropriate utility because they're adjusting that manhole because the sanitary sewer is there, not because the street is there. So I guess it's only right that we're also charging the equipment's time there. So as we wear that down and it gets repaired, or we have to replace a bucket, whatever it may be, the utility is paying for its portion of that equipment rental.
And that's paid at the full DOT rate.
That'd be at the same DOT rate, similar to how we handle the town or our recycling fund where we've historically done that. So.
Like the utility vans, those belong to utility.
So yeah, so the vans, like our sewer vac truck, those ones we don't because it is owned by, those are owned by the sewer utility, the water utility. The stormwater utility, I don't think owns anything.
Right, do we ever use those for non-utility use though?
Occasionally we do, it's generally inter utility though, like, so I guess we would have to look at the sewer vac truck using it when we hydro excavate for a culvert repair for the stormwater utility. So that'd be one thing to put in there, but in general, that's the only piece of equipment I can think of that a utility owns that the general fund doesn't and would be used.
Okay,
So who owns this building?
The village,
So is the village charging rent for all the parking spaces?
I don't believe so.
No?
That's another, maybe a future. We gotta keep some cars in the back pocket, because every year we have to try to find some more, so.
But like in the other building, we had all the buildings also by the village, right?
Correct.
Okay, so there was nothing like that, okay. Just a thought.
So the way that we're doing it, I know there was talk in the beginning that the utility could pay for some of this building, but the rental is actually a really great idea because that's continuous. That's more of operations, because all of a sudden they pay, when we split equipment, I mean, that was nice. We didn't have to borrow so much in the general fund, but the state doesn't control our borrowing. The state controls how much we can levy. So we may have decreased our borrowing one year, but we're still trying to fund those operations. And by having this rental, that's really going to help fund the general operations. So
Yeah, well, and it's only technically right.
it is.
Well, it's everything.
Speaking as
It's-
someone who's not in
it's-
utility.
it's Tools and, you know, everything, washing, everything.
The other comments? or-
Water utility guys, we should charge them for the use of our bathrooms.
Oh,
Showers.
you can install some quarter machines in there.
Okay.
All right,
Here's a quick summary of what did we increase on our revenue side. Property taxes only went up $70,980. The PILT, we increased that $19,000. We increased the utility, knowing with the additional assets that the water utility is adding, we will receive additional funds as a payment in lieu of taxes from the utility. We also increased the amount Rothschild gives us to just make it a little bit closer to actual. Transportation aids, we increased $100,000. Shared revenue, the 381, which was with the Act 12. DPW equipment rates, that is a 16.5, that's the what we were just talking about. Winter and street maintenance to town, we increased 15,000. We've been a lot higher, and without foreseeing any discontinuance of our working together, we increased the amount of revenue we'd receive from that. Interest income, a little conservative, we increased it 45,000. The other big one, applied budget surplus. So last year we applied 20,000, and this year we're applying 44,000. And I have a nice little graph. We were talking about this last time. What is the reasonable fund balance for the village? 21 and 22, we significantly increased our fund balance. Just with easier winters and with the way that we had some partnerships with the town, the winters, they were significantly higher than what was budgeted. And also as we talked before, we couldn't expend anymore because we were at the maximum expenditure for our expenditure restraint program. So that is part of why we had such a large surplus. So when we are applying this year, we're definitely well within our policy. I think our policy is up to 35%, and anything above that, we can spend on one-time things. Any comments on that?
If it drops below that 35, like 2020 and behind there, what's the negative consequence?
So what happened in those years is we were having deficits with, well, let me back up. Unassigned fund balance is money that the village has no ties to and is available to use for anything. So when the village borrowed money to Safer, and Safer owed us $600,000, that decreased our unassigned fund balance because that was a receivable from Safer, and we didn't actually have the funds that we could have spent. Does that make sense? So it was an asset, but that asset was not tied to money. It was tied to money that we didn't have yet. So we couldn't reserve it or spend it since we didn't have it. Another thing, in 2016, our TIF was not refinanced yet, and a lot of the general fund monies was loaned to the TIF because the TIF had these debt payments that it didn't have any money to pay. So back then, the general fund was using its monies to pay for TIF debt that since has been reversed. And that is one of the reasons why our unassigned fund balance is looking really nice too. That was reversed in 2017. So that was and then the Safer was reversed over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
Mhm. I didn't answer your question though. What happens if we were to go below? So it's a range. 35 is the max, and then I think it goes down to 25. The village needs to look at what they're spending and why it's not meeting the threshold that we want, and see if we can reverse it by basically spending less or to get the fund balance up. That makes sense?
So it's just an internal check and balance. There's no like, you're gonna get a letter from the state that says shame on you.
No letter from the state. It's just a recommended practice. Mhm.
Other questions? Comments? Okay. Do you have some more for us?
Is there any other sheets we really want to talk about? I gave you all the revenues that were in our budget. You can see the increases for the ones that we were looking at. License and permits, I did decrease the dog licenses. I'm hoping our effort this year will increase our revenues, but they have been going down the last couple of years. So I did budget a little bit closer to what we've received, so.
The only comment, I don't know how many read it or were aware that one of the things we talked about at the last meeting, of course, was the increase in the health insurance and what we should do about it and how we were going to handle it as far as an increase to our, our expenditures. That was one of the things we talked about, using fund balance for the elections next year because it's a presidential. And that's almost like a one-time expense. So we decided to use the fund balance to pay actually for the increase in the election costs, which then freed up money for the health insurance.
But now it's firm at 10.2.
Yes.
The increase is 10.2.
Mhm.
I talked to somebody at the county and they're 6.1. But their last several years have not been like ours either. But now they don't want to join. So they told me they couldn't.
Okay, that was All right, anything else on the capital projects, debt, or any other questions? Okay, I don't think there's any. Do we have to do any emotions, do you think? Just to accept the reports or?
You don't even have to accept where this is just a budget discussion, budget workshop. Up on your screen, I have the public hearing notice. This public hearing notice needs to be published in 2 weeks. I need to get it, actually a week and a half. So not next week, but by Wednesday of the following week, we need to get it to the paper so we can adopt on time. Because it has to be 15 days before adoption. It has to be published in the paper, so
You adopt the week before Thanksgiving, right?
that's the plan. As a reminder, Iris Metro is not adopted and Safer might change. But at this point, this is what I have, so. Any comments on this?
A 2-week window to advertise.
Yeah, we need to, for the public, in case they have any questions, they're able to come in and ask them. The lines in yellow are the ones that are not complete yet. We do not have the levies from the school, county, and technical college, and all those affect the amount of increment that we will get. And then we don't have our final statement of assessment, so I can't tell you exactly the tax rate for the tax rate, what that's gonna be yet. That's still to come. At this point, what we've done in the past is I've emailed out once I've gotten all the final numbers, and then the board has the opportunity to call another meeting. So if we can, I'll continue doing that. As soon as I have everything, I will email everything out, and then you can let me know if we want another meeting. There's an opportunity for another meeting after Parks or before Parks on that Monday, the 30th. So there's always an opportunity there if we need to meet. I'll just keep it open if everyone else can keep it open. Other than that, I don't anticipate anything, any major changes.
Any questions? Okay. The next item would be AR write-offs. With your pleasure on that, I do have questions. So if we're putting these on the tax roll and that, why are we writing them off?
We have to write them off of accounts receivable.
Really?
Well, that's the terminology, I guess. Yes, we need approval, so when we go in the accounts receivable software, we gotta write them off. And then we just put them on the tax roll.
Okay, and then when we get the money, what
It just goes as revenue,
goes what?
as revenue.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, because I mean, it used to be that you kept them on there and then after they paid, you wrote them off, but okay.
we need to get them out of our subsidiary system.
Okay,
So we just move them from one line to another.
okay. Well, it just seemed odd that we were writing them off and.
We used the
also
wrong
wanting to
terminology.
let them, you know.
I apologize. We should have had the 202 written off and then the 5,300 just as a transfer to the tax roll.
The big one, right? $3,700. Right. What's that? What street is that on? Bert, and that's the one that's continuing again?
Mhm.
That's the one that we're citing daily.
Were we able to get that money back at 3,700?
It's going on the tax bill.
Plan the-
Yeah, right, okay.
There'll probably be another bill.
Cause I'm getting, you saw the emails I'm getting from neighbors
We've
already.
been watching it all summer.
Okay.
And she just brought everything in again.
I have some pictures too.
We've
Other places or that one? Yeah.
My sister must have.
got lots of pictures of it.
When it first, like, just
Yeah.
consumed the front yard.
And the backyard and the side yard.
Mhm.
The two lawn mowing charges from March 22nd, did we mow someone's lawn in March? Or what, how does that work?
That's the property on Mesker Street that,
That's the house that burned down.
and we have to mow it every year.
Okay, so is that just a continuous?
So I think what happened is we did not get those bills on the tax roll last year. Is that it?
I think
Okay.
that's what happened because Renee usually took care of that. And there was a change with Jenna leaving.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious.
We have to do that one. We have to notice it every year. They put something out and that allows us to then mow it, and then we always end up putting it on the tax roll.
And what's with the garbage ones?
So when someone moves into their house, we bill them. The ones that for the 2022 and 2023, they moved into their house after, like if we bill them after October 1st, we can't put them on the tax roll. So they moved into their house after October 1st last year. So we had to bill them for the remaining of 2022. And then because their property did not have an improvement on it, we couldn't put garbage on it, or it wasn't in their name. It's something about the brand new house in the inner subdivision. We couldn't just give them it on their tax bill, so we had to bill them, and they obviously didn't pay.
Is there a way to work that in with like closing costs? When they purchase their home, instead of sending them a bill?
I don't know that answer.
I just
I
think
think
back to like my water bill issue when I moved in I was just curious.
Because it's new construction, so it didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Like your water, you had water
Right.
before, so this,
Yeah, if you got a vacant.
my
lot.
in-laws had the same exact thing. They got occupancy like,
But I mean, yours was manipulated.
or October.
Yeah,
12th
either
or
way, there was
something.
money that was gonna be owed because there was like a 6-day period that I. But I just thought I'd ask. I didn't know if that's something that could be.
Well, I guess it doesn't hurt. We'll get our money. It's just,
Any other questions? or
I have a
comments?
question.
Sure.
Are these write-offs just an internal thing, or are the amounts of the people that are written off, are they reported to any other outside agencies?
the ones that are transferred to the tax roll, we don't waste our time because we can get the money just, it's free. It's a little bit of effort to put them on the tax roll, but we don't try. The one up above, we're actually just forwarding to the Department of Revenue for collection. We do this process so when the auditor sees that we have a write-off in our accounts receivable software, it's approved. And that way we communicate with you to let you know what's going on. These are the ones that are moving on to a different level of collection. It's,
The sign crash one.
yes,
Okay.
Okay, so that one, we might still get the money for it, but
right,
you're writing it off and it'll be a different income. Okay.
yes.
Does it cost us anything to forward it to the Wisconsin Department of Revenue?
No, the
Okay.
state.
We do pay to get their identification. So we need a piece, what do you need? I don't remember.
Well, for we actually got the information from the accident.
Oh, okay. So sometimes we have to pay a third party to actually get like the social security number or anything, any identifying piece to send on to the state. But this one, we were able to get all the information off the accident report.
Okay.
So Stephen, your question before, think of it this way now that I think about it. If somebody buys a house on Hinter Springs and it's brand new, and Denyon has owned it for 6 months, and now the new owner is gonna own it for 6 months. I'm just using that for easy math. When they do the closing statement, that's going back and forth buyer and seller. There's no house on there, then Denyon wouldn't be
Okay.
responsible for garbage. And only the new owner would be to us, so they wouldn't be going back and forth on there.
Sure,
So
Yeah,
that
makes
answers
sense.
that
Thank you.
question.
that makes sense.
Okay, so finance, what's your pleasure to? Yeah,
To what?
yes, to recommend to the board on the write-offs as presented.
Move to accept or approve or acknowledge?
Recommend to the board.
Got three of them.
Accounts receivable.
Move to recommend.
Motion by Mark, second by Dave,
Reluctantly.
reluctant. Okay. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So carried. Now the board.
Move to approve the accounts receivable write-offs as presented.
By Pincinel, by Wyland. Any more in the discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
Okay, what discussion on timeline?
I guess I already talked about that. Again, I will be sending out the public hearing notice as soon as I have the finalized numbers. If, I don't know, Everest Metro, has Chief tried to set up a meeting for joint finance? Okay.
We're
Is
gonna
it
have
gonna
a-
be soon?
Gonna have a little get together with the 3 municipalities first,
Okay,
then go from there. Make sure you invite.
well, let me know, because if we can't get this finalized by by Wednesday, that first Wednesday in November, we will have to delay our adoption to that last Monday or any day after that for November. Just as long as we get 15 days of publication notice,
So our drop dead is when? 2 weeks from now?
pretty much, yeah.
November 1 to publish. Okay. I will, that's so noted.
We need to publish, yeah, November 1, so.
Yes, Dave.
I had a question on the income side of the equation.
Yep,
Based on the fact that interest rates have been going up. I know you've been busy with the budget, but has there been any looking at the investments that Weston has to see if there would be an advantage to cash in some lower rate ones and refinance at a higher rate?
I have been looking at it, but I have not contacted anyone. I don't have those really nice calculators that spit out the answer to you, and I don't really work with anyone that, because we don't pay for any of that type of service, so I'm not. I'll have to look into it. We do have some really low treasuries, but I read that treasuries might be coming back, so now's not the time to cash them in. Treasuries, I don't know if you've been looking, they've been selling it over 5. Ours are really bad because we bought them at a really bad time.
Treasury notes are hard to refinance, aren't they?
It's not refinance, we'd have to sell.
I mean, so.
Like our Fannie Mae's, I guess that's what I'm talking about, Federal Home Loan Bank. We have a few investments and some of them, they're pretty long term, so we're just gonna have to sit. We do have one coming up in 2024 and I'm looking forward to getting that money and being able to reinvest at a lot better rate.
Okay, anything else? All right, there are no resolutions or ordinances, so future next meeting is October 30th.
With a question mark if we need it.
Okay.
Other than that, it'll be our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay, and you'll let us know it.
Mhm.
Okay. Future topics, 2024 budget.
If we need it.
If we need it. Yep.
Remarks from staff.
I just want to let everyone know for the Tourism Commission, we will have to meet. We have the tourism contract. Pam and I looked into it. It is the Tourism Commission that actually is in contract with the CVB. So that's something that we will have to meet and get signed for next year. I don't know if we're going retro. Are we going
We're already
retro?
out of contract.
Yeah, I know. Do we sign it for this year then too, or how are we gonna work that?
I would really like that.
Okay,
Yep, especially with the direction we're going.
okay.
Okay.
You'll
So
let
what
us
are we
know
gonna do?
when
Are we
that.
gonna schedule a meeting for that or what? For tourism?
I figure in November we'd have the Tourism Commission meeting,
Like,
unless you wanna have a special one that's.
So let's just do it in November. I think that's a good. idea.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, any meeting members? Comments or questions, Mark?
Nope.
Anybody? Let's see, oh, Yi, do you have any comments?
No comments from me.
So, there are no announcements? May I have a motion to adjourn the finance committee? Motion by Dave,
You gonna second that?
I can second that.
all right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, so carried.
Okay.
We adjourn at 5:16 the finance.
Same motion for Board of Trustees.
So moved.
By Cronin, Second by Wyland. Any more in the discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Adjourned at 5:17. No, 5:16.